A lot of people see the P365 as the best subcompact carry gun, and a lot of people see the Hellcat Pro as the best. Both these guns have a lot to offer, and ultimately, one is going to be better for you. So let's get into it. Right off the bat, I think ergonomics is going to be the most important thing to take into consideration. The 365 kind of wins this for me. It's just going to be a lot more ergonomic in the hand. There's not going to be as many hot spots. When you hold the Hellcat Pro, you can feel every single edge on this grip. It's kind of like holding a 2x4. It's relatively uncomfortable. The grip texture is really nice. There needs to be more material removed right here. It kind of pushes down on my middle finger and it's a little bit uncomfortable, but the grip texture is nice. It's very similar to the X Macro in the sense of how rough it is and actually how it looks. That being said, both have really good grip texture. The 365 is going to have a little bit longer length of pull, which I prefer. But the Hellcat Pro, it's not gonna be too short by any means. Even at the break, it's gonna be at a comfortable length. One thing to keep in mind with ergonomics is going to be the actual length of the frame. The original 365, I just did not like at all. It has a very short frame. So they came out with the X series, which had a little bit longer frame, allowed you to hold more rounds. But frankly, it still wasn't very good. There was no rail mount on the front of the frame, so it still wasn't really a good option. And I really didn't even consider SIG to be one of the better carry options because you couldn't really carry a weapon light. You could only hold 12 rounds, and then entered the Springfield Hellcat. This gun's gonna allow you to hold 15 rounds. And yes, there was a workaround with the TacDev rail for the 365, which we used for a very long time, and it was great. However, it required custom holsters, which could be cumbersome for some people. The Hellcat, right out of the box, kind of checked all the boxes for us and was a really good option. And then they released the X Macro. While I didn't care for the X Macro because the porting helped a little bit, but it just wasn't as effective as a standard compensator, where the X Macro really shined was the actual frame itself. Not only is it way better than the SIG in every aspect, the grip texture, the length, the ergonomics, but you also now get 17 rounds. And with this frame, it's not much longer than the standard Hellcat Pro. I'm really impressed that SIG could squeeze 17 rounds into essentially a 15 round frame. And that's why I'm even comparing the Hellcat Pro to the 365. The original 365, I would just buy it and then completely change everything. Now that you can just buy a FCU and basically build a 365, it's just a lot more cost effective. If you were to buy a standard 365, it'd run you about $620. Whereas the Hellcat Pro comes in at $575. So it's gonna be cheaper right off the bat. And to get that regular 365 to have the longer frame and the rail for the light, you'd have to add a compensator or keep the X Macro slide. This regular 365 slide would just be too short and would look kind of weird without a compensator on there. You kind of have to Frankenstein the gun to get it to be perfect. It more competes with the regular Springfield Hellcat, which I'm frankly not a fan of either of those guns standalone. In general, I think most people prefer the larger framed gun. It's still very easy to carry. It's not gonna be that much more noticeable going from the Hellcat to the Hellcat Pro for concealed carry. Yes, the barrel's shorter, yes, the frame's shorter, but it's just not gonna make that big of a difference for appendix. If you're carrying strong side, you might see a little more printing. However, with how good holsters are today, I think the Hellcat Pro is a better option. What's really cool about SIG and why it differentiates itself from the Springfield is this FCU system that basically everybody knows about and we've talked about in depth. You can put an FCU in this X Macro frame. It's got a standard 365 slide, and you could throw a compensator on here, and it's still gonna come in shorter than the slide on the Springfield Hellcat Pro, which is really awesome because you get relatively good accuracy out of this 3-inch barrel. You get 17 rounds, and you get a compensator, so you can tame the snappiness of these smaller framed guns. And that's why we're comparing it, is the SIG standalone just wasn't perfect, so we made it perfect. And now I think it's got a fighting chance against this gun. The Hellcat Pro, I think, would be the clear winner over this build if it had a little bit better ergonomics. It's gonna be a little bit longer, which is a pro for the SIG. It's got a little bit heavier of a trigger, which is also a pro for the SIG. But what's really nice about the Hellcat Pro is it kind of comes ready out of the box. You don't have to Frankenstein it together to get it to be what it should be. And now Springfield even offers a threaded barrel version, so you can get a really good deal on that. If you were to buy a Comp-X Macro with this ported slide and this frame, you're looking at about $820, which is substantially more than a standard Hellcat Pro. There's a lot of things to compare when you're looking at two different guns, and price is important, comfort is important, trigger pull is important, concealability is important. There's a lot of things, and I think the SIG does a lot of things better when you build it out in this configuration, but not everybody wants to spend $1,200 on a gun to get it to be this. So a lot of people just want to buy a Hellcat Pro and run it, maybe not even with a compensator, maybe just a light and an optic, and pretty much have a really good setup. without spending hundreds of more dollars to get it perfect. But if you're the kind of person that likes to tinker and likes to make a gun that can do everything, this is kind of my favorite do-all handgun. If I wanted to, I could run this in competitions, I could carry it, I could do pretty much everything with it. And for me, it really stacks up well against the full-size handguns. That's what's kind of cool about this, is you can just build it however you want. There's aluminum frames for this. For example, here's a mischief machine. So if you wanted to add some more weight and reduce some recoil, or potentially get that 1911 grip angle, you can do it. With the Springfield Hellcat Pro, you're just limited. It's got an embedded serial number, so you're kind of stuck like you would be with a Glock. So there's just limitations. And we've said this in many videos that the SIG lineup, both the 320 and the 365, are great for the FCU system. And frankly, I think a lot of the downfalls of those two setups that other companies like Springfield are doing better kind of get overlooked just because of how versatile those two guns are. When it comes to aftermarket support, the 365 is going to be the clear winner. There's just kind of unlimited companies working on products for this. Herrington Arms, ourselves, being included in that. But for the Hellcat Pro, there's just not a lot of aftermarket support yet. And frankly, there's not a lot you can do. We looked at making a magwell for this. It's relatively impossible. The mag release is actually phenomenal on this, so there's not really a reason to make an aftermarket one. We're already making compensators for it, which have been doing phenomenal. There's companies making barrels, but past that, there's not really anything you can do. You can't make a frame. It comes optics cut with a pretty good system. The grip texture is pretty good, so stippling is not really necessary. I don't know if they could massage it to get it to be a little more ergonomic on the corners. It doesn't look like there's much material there, so I kind of doubt it. So unfortunately, Springfield did a lot of things right, but they didn't really make their gun apt to aftermarket support. They could have added a couple things on here that would really make it easier for companies like us to work with this. So that's kind of a limiting factor with the Hellcat Pro or the Hellcat, which is not a big deal. It's a great gun from the start. However, it's just not one that you can fully modify like the P365 or the 320. I think they did a lot of things really good with this gun, and it definitely shows. The customer base is really growing. We're getting a lot of comments about more products for the Hellcat Pro. So which one of these should you buy? It kind of depends who you are. I think if you're somebody who doesn't want to change the gun very much and not add a bunch of aftermarket accessories, the Hellcat Pro has a lot to offer over the 365. The larger barrel, the 15-round mag, the rail to put a light, it all just combines into a lot of really great features. So if you're not gonna Frankenstein a build, I think this is a really great option. It's been very reliable for us, and frankly, it shoots a little softer than the 365, so it's got a little bit less recoil. However, if you're really somebody who wants to push the needle or just want to specifically hand pick the components of your gun, the 365 is gonna be the choice. For me, between both these guns, I personally am choosing the 365, but if I get asked from somebody in my family or a friend which gun they should buy, a lot of people I push towards the Hellcat. I think it's a really good option for beginners. Not everybody wants to spend $1,000 building out a gun with a bunch of aftermarket accessories, so this is gonna be the clear choice for them. We've made individual videos on the Hellcat Pro and the 365 and other adjacent firearms, including the 43X. If you guys want to see more info on the Hellcat Pro, check out this video right here. If you guys like this video, we'd appreciate a like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.